Hi, my name is Ineal Knowlton Jr. I'm going to read the book John Henry, the Steel-Driven Man by Virginia Shump. It was the late 1800s. Americans were scrambling to crises across the country with railroad track. The railroads would carry goods and people. They would open up coal and timberlands. They would help the country grow. Building the railroads was hard work. The men of the work gangs hauled rocks and shoveled dirt. They laid the wooden beams and the heavy steel rails. They blasted their way through all mountains. Listen, one man is singing. Soon all the workers join in. The picks and hammers rise and fall to the rhythm of their work song. The words tell a story of joy and pain, strength and pride and courage. They tell the tale of John Henry. John Henry was born on a night as black as the belly of a mountain. Dark clouds covered the moon. Lightning flashed. Thunder pounded the earth like a hammer. Then that new baby cried. He cried so loud that he scared off the storm cloud. A big copper moon gazed down from the sky. Crickets sang in the grass. Roosters crowed in the barnyard. Black bears roared and panthers growled in the woods and the mountains. It seemed like the whole wide world was trying to say, "Welcome, John Henry." Folks knew right away that John Henry was something special. No one had ever seen a newborn baby walking and talking. And was that child hungry? When he was just 1 hour old, he asked his mama for supper. He ate 4 ham bones, a pot of greens, and a pan full of cornbread. He washed it all down with a bucket of buttermilk. After his meal, the boy climbed up on his daddy's knee. He grabbed hold of a steel nail and his daddy hammer. "I'm going to be a steel driving man," said John Henry. Before long, John Henry was working on the plantations. He worked with the hoe, he worked with the axe, pick, and shovel. But the only tool that ever felt just right in his hand was the hammer. As a young boy, John Henry hammered nails into boards. When he got older, he hammered fence posts. Whoosh! His big hammer swung through the air. Whack! The post smacked into the hard ground like an ear of corn dipped in soft butter. As he worked, he sang in his powerful voice, "Born with a hammer in my hand, going to be a steel driving man." At last, the Civil War came and put an end to slavery. John Henry was a grown man, a free man. It was time to leave home and make his way into the world. John Henry rambled all over the South, working all kinds of jobs. He picked corn and cotton. He built roads and houses. He loaded cargo onto steamboats that chugged up and down the Mississippi River. When each job was done, he moved on. He walked down the road singing, "Gotta find me a job with a hammer in my hand. Going to be a steel driving man." After a whole lot of wandering, John Henry found himself in West Virginia. He hiked through the mile after mile of tall, proud forest. He climbed up hills and down into hollows. One day, a sweet sound rang out over the next hill. He scrambled to the top and peered down into the valley. He saw hundreds of workmen. He saw a road of shining steel rails. The men were building a new line for the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. And the beautiful sound that John Henry had heard was the clang, clang, clang of their hammers. John Henry watched the workers closely. Some of them were laying wood railroad ties on the ground. Others crossed the ties with heavy steel rails. Still others hammered in the spikes that would hold the rails to the railroad ties. The hardest job of all was steel driving. The steel drivers had to drill holes into solid rock. A helper called a shaker held the steel drill in place. The steel drivers pounded the drill with the heavy hammers. After he made a lot of holes, the blaster crew packed them with dynamite. Kaboom! The blast blew the rocks to kingdom come, clearing the way for more railroad tracks. John Henry went to the captain of the railroad gang. I was born to be a steel driving man, he sang out. Steel driving is hard work, said the captain. You have to hammer fast or you can slow down the rest of the game. You have to hammer true or you can hurt your shaker. Just give me a chance, said John Henry. Then he lifted his hammer. It flashed through the air like lightning. He brought it down with a crash as loud as thunder. With just one stroke, he drove his drill deep into the rock. And the captain said, "You're hired." So John Henry set to work for the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. He drove the steel faster and better than any other man. Most steel drivers use a 10-pound hammer. He used two 20-pound hammers, one in each hand. Clang, clang. How he made those hammers ring. Hour after hour, he never missed a stroke. The shaker held his drill. The waterman threw his water on his blazing hammers so they wouldn't catch fire. John Henry's booming voice rang out up and down the line. Ain't no hammer, clang, in these mountains, clang. Ring like mine, boys, clang. Ring like mine, clang. Thanks to John Henry, the new railroad line moved right along. The tracks stretched through forests. They cut through hills and canyons. Then they came smack up against a monster, Big Bend Mountain. Big Bend was too big to build around. The crew have to drive their drills right through the middle. They would have to build a tunnel 1.25 miles long. It would be the longest tunnel ever built. 1,000 men worked on the Big Bend Tunnel. They worked in smoke and dust, darkness and danger. And leading the way was the king of the steel drivers, John Henry. One day, a city slicker showed up at camp. He was selling a new kind of drill, powered by steam. The salesman said, this steel drill can drill faster than 10 men put together. The workers looked at the steel drill. They saw a metal monster bristling with tubes and knobs and dials. They saw a future when machines would rob men of their pay and their pride. Then John Henry stepped forward. Before I let a machine beat me, I'll die with my hammer in my hand. So the contest was set. Who could drill faster, a machine or the world's best steel driving man? Folks came from miles around to watch the race. The captain blew his whistle. Go! Whoosh! Clang! John Henry swung his mighty hammers. Bang! Crash! The steam drill roared to life. All morning long, John Henry hammers rose and fell. His arms ached and inside felt like they were on fire. At lunchtime, he took a cool drink of water. Then he hammered away faster and faster. All that time, the steam drill pumped up and down. Men shoveled coals into its belly. They poured water into its boiler. Clouds of steam and dust and smoke bellowed out from inside the mountain. Finally, the sun went down and the captain blew his whistle. The judges measured the holes. John Henry had drilled 14 feet into the rock. The steam drilled had only gone 9. All the people cheered and shouted. John Henry just laid down his hammers. He sank it to the ground. He closed his eyes, with a smile. He had beat the machine, but his great heart had burst doing it. They buried John Henry beside the Big Bend Tunnel on a quiet night. You could still hear his hammers ringing. You might even hear a deep voice singing softly in the darkness. Died with a hammer in my hand, here lies a still driving man. The end. John Henry.